Today for Devotions with Daniella, we are reading from Daniella's book, Uncultured. And while Knitting Cult Lady has been accused of being a psychological operation, conducting them is the proper way to say that, because she's selling her own book, actually what happened is I created a product that I needed when I was going through my deconstruction, and I truly believe it will help people, and that's why I spend so much time reading aloud. And what ex-cult members don't understand is non-deceptive sales. If you've ever wanted to know more about the Children of God religious schmex cult, that's what this half of chapter 1 is about. The Children of God was started in 1968 by the prophet David Berg, a failed 50-year-old preacher who finally found his calling by saving lost souls searching for meaning among the hippies gathering in California. The adults called him Dad, and we kids called him Grandpa. The counterculture movement had given the Children of God an opportunity to flourish, as many people, especially young people, were leaving organized religion in the name of finding their own relationship to spirituality and peace. Berg saw these young people as sheep in need of a shepherd and began to corral them into his flock. And then a line I'm incredibly proud of and will definitely be in Uncultured the musical. But the thing nobody ever tells you about the shepherd analogy is that the shepherd always eats his sheep in the end. To join the group, all adults forsook their worldly possessions and dedicated their lives to Jesus, as explained by the prophet. They took on new names from the Bible, and David Berg rechristened himself Moses David, answering as prophet, Father David, Mo, Dad, and later Grandpa to his followers, and many other names. The group was full of idealistic seekers who deeply believed in the righteousness of their mission. Young people gathered before the end times to bring in lost souls for Christ, sharing and living together communally with love and acceptance. They called themselves Teens for Christ until a journalist derisively called them the Children of God, and they decided to adopt the moniker as their own. Internally, they referred to themselves as the family. They started proselytizing, launching communes throughout the world. By the mid-70s, an estimated 30,000 people were on the active membership rolls of the Children of God from all over the US, and the group had spread to at least 15 countries. Spotting a way to differentiate himself from all the other new religious movements sprouting up, Berg started preaching how much God loved schmex, and that the devil was the one who had demonized it. He began writing prolifically, sharing his beliefs through thousands of publications he called Mo letters, as well as comic books and, later, movies and music produced by a central ring of his followers. He taught my grandparents' generation, the first generation, that it was their sacred duty to raise schmexually liberated children, and publicly declared how much he'd been liberated enough to have schmex with his own mother as a young teenager. Berg also believed, like many evangelicals of his day, in the Christian idea that if you spare the rod, you spoil the child, which is the name of this chapter. And as the Children of God began to have children of their own, the rod of correction was polished. The prophet claimed that no child was too young for discipline, and that babies as young as 6 months old would benefit from spankings to teach them to behave. I can't remember a single day of my childhood that I wasn't hit hard. Spankings weren't the worst way to get punished. Swats, knocks on the head, slaps on the hand, flicks on the mouth, backhands to the face, and other kinds of paddlings were things that happened every day in response to the hundreds of bad things we did, like stepping out of line, talking out of turn, complaining about food or hunger, or not respecting our elders. At 5, I'd been instructed for years on how to act, but I struggled to control my frustrations, almost always rolling my eyes when an adult corrected me. I got hit a lot for disrespect. But it didn't really bother me. It hurt for a minute, and then it was over. Besides, I learned from the older kids that I could always tell on someone else, and then they might get hit too, and that would make me feel better for a little while. This was the way I lived, and I, in turn, never knew who I could trust. One minute, another child might be my friend, and the next she would be convicted by the Lord to report me, and the discipline cycle would start again. There were as many different flavors of punishments as there were adults in whatever commune we lived in. Some liked to give us hard labor. Some enjoyed making us stand with our arms outstretched, holding the Bible on flat palms for what seemed like hours. Some of them hung signs around our necks with sayings like, "Don't talk to me, I'm disrespectful." Now I sell that on a t-shirt. Timeouts could last for hours, as any passing adult could place me in a corner somewhere and leave, and the person in charge of childcare that day couldn't be sure when it was okay to take me out again. If a home shepherd, someone in leadership, put a child in timeout, he or she would be stuck there for the rest of the day. None of the rank and file adults willing to risk interfering with a punishment from an elder. Technically, parents could stop what was happening at any time, but that hardly ever happened. They were children of God first, parents a far second, and none of us ever forgot that. Washing our mouths out with soap was another form of punishment the adults favored, used to combat signs of the devil in us, like using foul language, taking the Lord's name in vain, gossiping, or exhibiting the foolishness that is bound in the heart of a child. Each uncle or auntie had a unique mouthwashing style, but the process remained the same. I'd be taken into the nearest bathroom, alone or in a group, and the punisher would grab the nearest bar of soap and then clean out my mouth. Some would rub the bar on their hands, then shove their fingers into my mouth, spreading the suds around the insides of my cheeks and sliding them down my throat. Some adults would make me open wide and hold the bar of soap in between my lips, my tongue having no choice then but to either slide back and forth across it or sit still beneath it, gathering all that soap-flavored saliva. The worst ones would make me take a bite of the soap and chew it slowly, and the especially sadistic ones would make me swallow it. The sting stayed in my throat for hours, and particles of soap would wash up on my tongue and from the crevices in my teeth long after the punishment was over. I fantasized about biting down hard any time a grown-up's hand was shoved inside my mouth, but of course I never dared. Any visible reaction or tears would only bring on more punishment. I couldn't always help myself, but I tried never to cry. Silence restriction, where children, young people, or adults were banned from speaking aloud for hours, days, or weeks in some cases, and lengthy periods of isolation were reserved for the most serious offenses, like doubting or questioning the Bible, Grandpa's teachings, or any Children of God doctrines. From the time we were born, we were taught that David Berg was God's chosen prophet, and we could never, ever question anything he said, no matter how strange it seemed. I learned to be grateful every time I got spanked or received one of the more minor forms of punishment, especially if it was administered by one of the less brutal adults. I learned to be grateful that it wasn't worse, because it could always be worse. It could have been Uncle Jerry, who enjoyed it too much. This is Jeremy Spencer of Fleetwood Mac, who gives all of his royalties still to this day to a pedo cult, who got to do whatever he wanted. He loved giving group spankings, seemed to feed off the crying and screams. He loved to brag about how even Grandpa thought he was one of the best spankers in the family. As bad as his spankings were when he was performing for the crowd, it was always worse when he would take you alone into his room and close the door. Worse because he liked to do all sorts of things besides spanking. Worse because you knew that nobody was ever going to come in and stop him.